So, have you ever stopped to think about this? In a time filled with prophets who did these incredible physical miracles, splitting the sea, healing the blind, why was the Prophet Muhammad's main miracle a book? It's a fascinating question. When people demanded some huge, spectacular sign from the heavens, the answer again and again was the Quran itself. Okay, let's really dig into this because it gets to the absolute core of what the Quran is all about.
To really get the answer, we have to rewind a bit and understand what was going on at the time. The early Muslim community in Mecca, they were under a ton of pressure. And the disbelievers, they weren't just having a friendly debate. No, they were seriously challenging the prophet, demanding a physical, undeniable miracle. Something so big, it would just force them to believe.
And here's the thing. This challenge isn't just some historical footnote. It's documented right there, inside the Quran itself. This one verse just perfectly captures the whole debate. This isn't a historian telling us this happened. This is the scripture quoting its biggest critics. And this question is the very thing that the rest of the verse and a whole tradition of theology sets out to answer. For centuries, some of the greatest minds have unpacked the Quran's answer by zeroing in on this very verse. The entire argument we're about to walk through, it comes directly from this deep, classical tradition of analysis, which just meticulously dissects the Quran's response to that one huge challenge. So the response to their demand all hinges on this really critical idea, that not all miracles are the same. In fact, the commentators make a very clear distinction between two totally different kinds of science: the sensory miracles that past prophets brought, and the intellectual miracle that is the Quran. And this comparison just lays it all out so clearly. On one side, you've got your sensory miracles. You can think of these as being tied to a specific time and a specific place. They appeal directly to your senses, what you can see and hear. They're a sign that points to the message. But on the other side, you have an intellectual miracle. This is eternal, it's universal, it's meant to appeal to your reason, to your knowledge. And here, the message is the sign. It's accessible to anyone, anywhere, anytime. Let's look a little closer at these sensory miracles. They were physical, tangible events. The staff of Moses turning into a serpent, a powerful sign for Pharaoh and the people right there in the room. The healing that Jesus performed, absolutely undeniable for those who actually saw it happen. But by their very nature, their direct impact was finite. They existed in one moment, for one audience, and as soon as that moment passed, they became a story, a report of a miracle that you had to take on faith. Now contrast that with the intellectual miracle. The Quran isn't presented as some temporary show. It's presented as a miracle of knowledge, of divine science. The proof of where it came from is said to be inside the text itself. Its structure, its coherence, its wisdom. It's designed to engage your mind. And because it's a text, it isn't locked to one generation. It's eternal, it's universal, and it's always accessible. And this is where it all clicks into place. If the miracle is supposed to be intellectual and eternal, well then it can't be some fleeting event, right? It has to be something permanent. It has to be the book itself. And you know what's so powerful? The crucial point is literally built into the Arabic language of the Quran. The word for a verse of scripture is ayah. Simple enough. But ayah also means a sign, a proof, a miracle. And that is absolutely not a coincidence. The language itself is making the argument for us. Every single verse is intended to be a sign. Every line of the book is a piece of the miracle. And this leads us to the most profound conclusion of all. The Quran isn't a history book that just tells you stories about miracles that happened to other people, in other places, a long, long time ago. No. The argument is that the book you can hold in your hands is the miracle, just waiting for you to engage with it. Okay, so if the miracle shifts from something you see with your eyes to something you understand with your mind, what does that do to the role of the prophet himself? Well, it fundamentally changes his entire mission, from being a miracle worker to being a teacher, a guide. Let's go back to that verse we started with, remember? After acknowledging the demand for a sign, the verse immediately clarifies the prophet's role. It says, "You are only a warner, and for every people there is a guide." The answer to the demand for a miracle is to redefine his purpose. Think about it. A giant, flashy, overwhelming physical sign. It can kind of compel belief through sheer shock and awe, right? It doesn't leave much room for free will or real intellectual conviction. But a miracle based on knowledge, that requires a choice. It invites you to study, to reflect, to really engage with it.
So the prophet's role wasn't to force people to submit with a spectacle, but to present the intellectual proof and then guide people toward understanding it for themselves. So let's pull all these threads together. The Quran's response to that demand for a miracle wasn't a no. It was actually a redefinition of what a miracle for all of humanity for all time really has to be.
It's a really elegant line of reasoning when you lay it out like this. It all starts with the demand for a tangible sensory sign. Then, the Quran gives us this framework for understanding that there are two different kinds of miracles. And it ends with this profound answer that for a final, universal message, the proof has to be inside the message itself. And this, right here, is the ultimate implication. A miracle that happened in the past is basically a memory, right? It's a story that gets passed down through generations. But a book, an intellectual miracle, that's different. It doesn't fade into history. It's a living, ever-present proof. It's basically an open invitation for every single person in every generation to pick it up and examine the evidence for themselves.
And so that's the final thought I want to leave you with. What really changes about faith, about reason, about the very idea of evidence, when the ultimate proof of a message isn't some external event, but the very fabric of the message itself? It's a lot to think about.